I guess, what is the best and worst decade in terms of like overall build quality of homes to buy?
Oh man, so you're going to be in a lot of work buying homes from like the 50s to the 70s, just because of building materials that we use, you know, plumbing materials, both distribution and drain waste piping. See that with like new homes. They look really nice, but I don't get that same like hardy, gonna last forever feel.
Yeah.
My favorite, honestly, is like probably.
Cool. Hey guys, Alex here with Everything Utah Real Estate. We are here with Seth from Utah Elevated Home Inspections. I don't want to steal your thunder, so feel free to introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, Seth, I'm the owner of Utah Elevated Home Inspections. We are your full service home inspection company serving the entire Wasatch Front from Ogden to Provo, as well as all the fun places, Heber, Morgan, and Tooele Valleys, and Park City. We're InterNACHI certified inspectors and certified to not only take care of an over 500-point complete home inspection, but take care of any ancillary services your clients might need as well: meth, mold, radon testing, sewer scope video inspections, all the good stuff. So, yeah, thanks so much for having me over today. I'm excited to chat with you.
I'm happy we were able to get this figured out. It took us a little minute, but we got it sorted out. We're here. Cool. So what made you get started?
So I have a really vast background in a number of different construction trades. In my kind of early mid-20s, I did a lot of different stuff. And it was great. I learned a ton, but it just, you know, I guess I wasn't fulfilled totally with it. And I think the reason for that is the other portion that I really kind of need personally is I just really like helping people. So if I can, you know, take knowledge that I've gained with my experiences and utilize that to teach somebody new, explain something further that they don't understand, and kind of, you know, let them have that light bulb moment, if you will, that makes me feel good and why I wanted to do this in general. So yeah, you want like my full story of kind of how we did this? Let's go. All right. So, yeah, early days did a lot of stuff from, excavation work, you know, digging foundations and laying, pipe work. I did a lot of culinary piping service and distribution work, to, you know, flat concrete work, framing of houses, finished carpentry. I did welding for a little while, kind of like on the side. So, wow. You know, I wouldn't say that I'm like super skilled in that. My welds are not very good, but I have an understanding of how those things should go, right? I also, you know, when I was younger, I was fortunate enough to have uncles that were tradesmen, plumbers, electricians, stuff like that. So I'd get to pick their brain and do ride-alongs with them, things of that nature. So I kind of had an understanding of how everything should work. And I decided that I was going to, you know, after a while, I was going to go make money with my brain instead of my back. So I went into sales, which is actually kind of funny.
What did you do?
Software sales.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What company?
Backup and disaster recovery. So I worked for a company called Acronis.
Okay.
And a company called Storagecraft.
Nice.
And sold backup and disaster recovery software for them, which is actually super interesting. A lot of it is like way above my knowledge set just because I'm not super technically advanced, if you will. But really great companies, really cool experience, did well, you know. I was part of a sales team, and we, you know, always did well. President's Club, you know, top performers, stuff like that. But again, I just didn't really have that. I was selling things. I wasn't really, and I mean, I guess I was teaching things as well, but it just wasn't quite the right fit for me. Yeah. And let's be real. Having a sales quota is not the best thing for everybody, right? That would just linger over my shoulders every month and kind of wore on me after a while. So I'm like, all right, what can we do? Like, I like this side of it, talking with people, figuring out their problems, understanding what their needs might be, and then, you know, producing a product for them that could be helpful. Maybe it's not, but it could be. Yeah. I have a lot of knowledge in this other portion. So how can I kind of incorporate the two of those? And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start checking out home inspections. I'm going to learn how to do this. And so I was working for, still doing sales at the time, and then doing home inspection training part-time. So, you know, I'd go to work during the day, and then nights and weekends, I'd be on the computer doing my certifications. And I got all jacked up and did finish one of them, and I joined this local group called URIG. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
No.
So it's the Utah Real Estate Inspectors Guild.
Oh, okay.
It's the only guild that I've ever been part of, and they're awesome, by the way.
Really?
I don't have to wear chainmail, which I was a little bit let down about, but yeah. I thought like they would knight me when I joined or something. Didn't happen also, but really great group of guys, and their cause is really noble. So they're actually one of the only organizations in the state of Utah that are pushing for like regulated home inspections. And,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, making sure that everybody's properly certified, and, you know, it's not your neighbor with a flashlight and a tape measure that's checking things out for you, because as you know, real estate transaction is one of the largest transactions a lot of people will make in their life. So we want to make sure that we do the best job the first time, every time. Joined this group. Well, hadn't joined the group yet. Went and visited this group. Started kind of chatting with some of the other inspectors, and they're like, "Oh, are you thinking about becoming a home inspector?" Yeah. What certification are you taking? And I told them, and they all just kind of like looked around the room at each other, and it got a little bit quiet. And I'm just thinking,
like,
what am I missing?
Doing wrong?
What am I missing here?
Yeah.
Something's going on. And so I just kind of asked, like, what are you what's your certification? And a lot of them are multi-certified. They have a number of different certifications, but they told me, and then they said, you know, what you're doing is kind of a waste of time. It's kind of like a fluff certification, and nobody really takes it seriously. So,
ouch.
Sorry, but here's some good information. Take a look at these guys. Become affiliated with this organization. Start your path with these guys. So that's when I started my certification with InterNACHI, and who I'm still affiliated with. I'm now a certified master inspector with InterNACHI, and they're a fantastic organization. They're actually, I think, still the only nationally accredited home inspector certification in the country.
Wow.
So, yeah, got lined up, dialed in with those guys. It took me a while to, then part-time get recertified, but now I also have dual certification, which is cool. And through that process, and also going to this place, I, started building relationships with these other inspectors, and kind of understanding, their needs in the industry right now, and what they're seeing, and, maybe where I could have an edge or potential as a new inspector coming into the space. So I got all certified, and was super excited. And my whole plan was to continue to work full time, and then part time be like a subcontractor for other inspection companies. A lot of the inspection companies are not like large franchise companies. There's a handful of them here in Utah, but most of them are, probably between 1 and, I don't know, 10 even seems like a high number of inspectors.
Yeah.
So my whole thought was like, well, I'll come into the business and fill in these gaps where they need inspectors sometimes. Maybe their schedule's full, but one of their best agents calls and needs an inspection. Don't tell him no. Just call me. I'll wear your hat, do the inspection. We're both certified under the same affiliation. Everything will be great. And so that was kind of like where I thought my edge would be. So my plan was to do that part-time while I worked full-time. And then this like funny little sickness came around, and the whole world.
The coof, yeah.
It was like this strange, I'm trying to remember the name.
COVID.
Everybody
22.
just, yeah, the whole world went crazy. And I lost my job.
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm like, well, there's no better time than now. Like I have all the time in the world to go after this thing. So, I just started, marketing to real estate agents, and to other inspectors. I literally just went on Google, pulled up, you know, inspectors in the area, inspection companies in the area, and just started calling people. Hey, I'm a brand new inspector. I'm not necessarily looking for you to hire me full time, but if you need someone to fill in for your gaps, please keep my number, call me. You know, I'll work for you 1099, like whatever I didn't know how I was going to figure it out. I'm just trying to figure it out at this point, you know,
throwing stuff at the wall, hoping something sticks.
And most of the people I talked to were like, hey, cool. This is a cool idea. Thanks for reaching out. We don't really have a need or an interest for it right now. But there was a couple companies that were like, hey, we could utilize you. So, and I don't know if I should name drop, but one of them I started working for and was doing quite a bit of business for them. I was also the owner of this company, also ended up kind of being like a mentor for me when I was coming into the game. He, longtime inspector, really smart guy, and allowed me to not only go like shadow him on like ride along inspections when all I had was like book knowledge, but no in field practical, practical experience. So he would allow me to literally hop in the truck with him and go all day, you know, get lunch and like go do 2 inspections throughout the day and just pick his brain on whatever. And yeah, super grateful for that. So, I started doing inspections for him. And then as I was, you know, marketing to everyone else, trying to get drum up some other business, either through filling in for other home inspection companies, or I was also building relationships with real estate agents at the time. So one of the companies that I'd reached out to earlier in the year was Utah Elevated Home Inspections. And the owner of that company at the time, James Brissett, I talked to, it was cool because a lot of the people that I talked to, it was like a 2-minute conversation, you know, like short and sweet. Thanks for calling. Don't really have a need for it. See you later. I called James and we spent like 50 minutes on the phone.
Dude, those are the best.
Yeah. It just totally out of the blue.
Yeah.
Like I got off the phone and I'm like, wait,
Holy
is it
cow.
really that time? You know? And he didn't even offer me a job or like, you know, any work at all. We just chatted about a lot of stuff. He was really interested in kind of my journey to this point and what brought me here, and just good people. But he had started the company with his brother-in-law. They're both going to school at the time, and his brother-in-law was also part of the National Guard. So it worked out perfect for them because the flexible schedule, right? They could just kind of schedule inspections in and around class or service time. And so that they started the company in 2019 with that thought in mind. So I spoke with James in like February 2020, right before all this chaos happened. And he's like, yeah, you know, we're not really looking for anything right now, but I'm actually going to be graduating here this year. And, you know, I've already started kind of getting looked at by companies for my degree, for different job opportunities. And so it might be something that I'll need some help with, you know, later on this year, summertime, fall, something like that. So let's keep in touch. I'm like, awesome. So I go about my life, trying to figure out how to build an inspection company. And I get a call back from James in June, and he's like, hey, I'm getting ready to graduate. How would you like to take over the rest of my inspections for the rest of summer? Like, I can't, he was getting his master's degree in something or other. I won't even pretend to remember, because it's something I can't even understand. So, but it was going to take a lot of his time to really make this last push before graduation. So he's like, you know, I don't have time to kind of focus on both. I don't want the company to like hurt because of that. So how would you like to just kind of take over my inspections? I'll still schedule things for you. Like, I'll definitely be very much part of the interactions, but you can just take over at least the inspections for the summer. I'm like, no, that sounds awesome. Actually, I hate that idea. No, that's great. You know? So we did that, and it was awesome. It was actually, I mean, you know how things were in 2020. It was like one of the best years ever for the company as far as inspections go. So, you know, fast forward a little bit, we're kind of tailing down off the summer months, coming into, I guess it was like October. And, you know, James and I have another conversation. He's like, you know, I told you that I was already kind of being looked at by a couple companies for an opportunity after this. Turns out I accepted one. I've already been working with them. I'm already like so buried in things to do that like I can't focus on anything else. This is something that really means a lot to me, and I really want it to not only like succeed, but be a good business. So how would you like to buy it?
That's great.
And I'm just like, I don't really know a whole lot about, you know, in the inspection business in general at all. I'm pretty new to all of this. You know,
I have just running a company
in
general.
Exactly.
It's like a totally different thing.
I'm 6 months into a new business field that I'm just trying to understand still. And now he's, you know, offering me to buy his company. And it was just kind of one of those moments that's like, what else are you going to do? You know, like, you're going to just kind of ride out this chaos of fear or whatever it is, and then get back into like another job that you're not super satisfied about? Or like, are you ready to like dig in and go after something that you want to happen? So yeah, so we did it. So we figured out kind of what that looked like, drew up like the, you know, went and talked to the attorneys, had all the business agreements drawn up, and starting in January 2021, I was the official owner of Utah Elevated Home Inspections. The cool thing was, is he stayed on for the better part, James stayed on for the better part of 2021, just to kind of, you know, the relationships that he had already kind of kindled through the business. He didn't want me to answer the phone when someone called and like, where's James? I don't know this guy. Boom. And on to someone else. Right. So he kind of helped with that transitionary period. It was also, as you can imagine, a pretty big learning curve for me. So he helped with a lot of like the administrative kind of stuff, scheduling inspections and making sure our service agreements were updated, and just keeping me in the loop with like, hey, our website's about ready to expire. And hey, like, you know, just normal stuff that like I hadn't been thinking about. So, super grateful for that. So he stayed on for the better part of that year, and 2021 crushed. I mean, it was better than 2020, and 2020 was crazy. Yeah. And so the transition went really, really well. And like I said, the plan was for him to stay on for the entirety of the year, but things were just going so smoothly. And he, you know, I don't know if he felt that he didn't really need to have his presence around so much, or if he was just like, okay, you got this, dude. Like, I can't anymore. I'm doing something else. So he only stuck around for, you know, probably till August or something, but it was a really great transition. I still do a lot of business with clients that he had prior to me taking over the company.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And we've just been, you know, thankfully growing tremendously, and really making awesome relationships with the kind of agents that we want to do business with, not, you know, the kind that we don't talk about on podcasts. So, I feel super fortunate to have been given this opportunity. It's, you know, it's one of those things that some nights I sleep really good and some nights I don't so much, but I think that's everything in life.
Yep.
And, you know, if it doesn't scare you a little bit, like, what are you doing? So, yeah, super stoked to be doing it. Super stoked to be servicing the Salt Lake community, Wasatch Front community, Davis County, Utah County. And yeah, really happy to be helping people in a different way now.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's like kind of going back a little bit. What was that feeling like when you officially bought the company? Were you like pretty scared, or were you excited to see kind of where it was going to go?
Total fear. I'll be completely honest with you. I'm like, I would like to believe that I'm like the ultimate creative and like, you know, optimistic visionary. But I'm not. I'm like the worker bee person. So trying to go from like, okay, give me a job and I'll get the job done and everything will be done right and good, and I'll move on to the next one, to, okay, now you got to go find the job. You got to figure out the relationships and the working of that job. You got to put, you know,
the marketing, and then you got to do the job.
Everything. Yeah. It was scary to think about. But luckily, you know, I had a really great mentor to help me out with the inspection side of things. And if I'm being honest, I've been pretty fortunate with just like meeting great people in the industry that are willing to give me a little bit of information, kind of, you know, help me get some better understanding with things that I knew nothing about. And that's been really helpful too. And really understand, like talking to, I'm part of a BNI group as well. And I think that really helped me a lot because I'm talking to a lot of other people that are in my exact same shoes.
Oh, really?
Most of the people in those groups are business owners. They're not just like a representative of that company. And a lot of them, you know, started their company from scratch.
Yeah.
And so they're just hustling too, you know, and it was that was helpful to me because I'm getting an understanding that like, oh, I'm not the only one that's having these kind of struggles. Like these are common struggles that are felt with a lot of people that are doing the same thing that I'm doing. And by the way, they have some information on how to figure this out.
Through it, yeah.
Yep. So, you know, one of the scariest things was like raising your hand and saying, I don't know how to do this. But that's also like one of the most humbling and empowering things too, because people genuinely want to help you.
Mm-hmm. People respect you too, like
even,
if you say that.
For sure. And even like my competitors, you know,
really?
Like there's a lot of home inspectors that I'm very good friends with. And like I'll post something on Instagram and they'll like give me like shout out my stuff on Instagram. Like
That's awesome.
it's a pretty cool community. I feel like our industry is a little bit different. But yeah, I've reached out to a number of them and asked about certain things, or like, you know, I'll see one of them post something that maybe I haven't seen before, or is in just kind of like a different configuration than what I'm used to or something. And I've never had someone just like leave me on red or whatever. Like most people are really, really cool at reaching back out and either giving me the information I need or like, hey, you can check this out or whatever, you know, but it's, I've been pretty fortunate on I guess connecting with the right folks, but definitely fear. And you know, just fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
When you don't know how to do something, it's always scary.
Yeah, especially like going from, because I mean, you mentioned earlier you didn't run a business before this.
No.
So going from never running a business to all of a sudden you're buying one.
Yeah.
It's totally different world.
I went from like, you know, like roughneck construction guy to corporate sales America to how would you like to buy and run a company?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, maybe I have multiple personalities or something, but it's worked out pretty well. And it's, I like, you know, I like the challenge of having to figure out something new.
Yeah.
And especially, you know, it's kind of like that thing they say, if you find something that you love to do, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, I mean, I love fishing a lot, but I think if I did it for work, that I would probably not like it so much.
Yep.
But I think just keeping it interesting and finding, you know, new ways to improve on what you're doing or change the process a little bit, you know, just to keep it interesting is what drives me. And the cool thing about home inspections in particular is it's always changing.
And it's different every day.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to do the
Always.
same thing every day. That like changing it up helps so much with like just not getting bored with something.
Yep. Totally.
So-
So yeah, not only are, you know, building practices and building codes and building materials and, you know, all of that changing on a regular basis. But like you said, we're at a different location all the time.
Yep.
So it's like I never get tired of being at the same place because I'm never at the same place.
Yep.
And the experience with every client's different.
Yeah.
You know, some people are really interested and or like nervously attentive to what you have to say and what you're going through and things like that. And other people are just kind of like, you know, measuring for their dresser while you're like talking about stuff. So it's all over the place, and that's what keeps it fun.
Yeah.
So
one question I've always had is because I've always heard, if you don't know, real estate agents have a really bad rep. Understandably. Like I think we're one of like the top 10 least trusted. Like we're right below car salesman.
when someone tells a joke, it's like car salesman and then real estate agent.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a pretty bad rap. Understandably, I mean, there's a lot of really bad agents out there.
Sure.
And I've heard, you know, just from people online, like never trust the inspector your real estate agent sends you. Always get like your own. Have you ever had an agent that you've worked with? You don't have to name any names. Actually, please don't, because I don't want to get sued.
Yeah,
but
right.
Have you ever worked with an agent who was just like really sketchy, just saying like, oh, you don't need an inspection on this house, or just something to that effect?
Yes.
Where you're like,
yes,
how
dude.
was it?
I hate it. And I hate it because I guess I should have touched on this. Like this is another reason why I became a home inspector is, you know, I kind of touched on how expensive of a transaction this is, but like this is your home. This is where your family's going to sleep. And there's, you know, not wanting to rebuild the deck or restain the deck because it, you know, cosmetically looks bad is one thing. Not wanting to fix it when someone can potentially fall off, is a totally different thing, you know? And I've had I'll be honest with you. I don't work with grimy real estate agents. I don't know.
Have you ever had to have that conversation with the buyer? Like saying, hey, I can't do this because your agent is bad?
Not with the buyer, luckily, because, well, yeah, not with the buyer, luckily, but I did have a weird situation where I did inspection. It was on a home. It was a 100-year-old home that had like 4 different layers of roofing materials and all different types of layers. There was wood shingles. There was metal roofing. Then there's multiple levels of asphalt shingles. Like it was bad.
Wow.
On just rafter built structural system in the attic. Like it wasn't meant to carry all of that weight.
Yeah.
Right. And so I told her that. I said, you know, my recommendation would be to pull all of this off. Like it's the layer that's on here that's supposed to be the top layer that's covering your protecting layer right now isn't doing its job because it's so cracked and deteriorated from all the excessive heat from all the layers underneath that it's ruined the shingles. So if you're going to have to take those off anyways, take all of them off and start over, because if not, you know, it's really heavy up here right now. What's going to happen when it snows, you know? And they just put, oh wait, I'm sorry. There was shingles and then the metal roofing was on top. That was like their cap, like it was like the lipstick on a pig, right? And I'm like, listen, like that's fine that they have this up here, but it's all of these other layers should come off. Like this is all bad. And then I also told her that there was no ventilation for the attic space, which also contributes to heat and all of, I mean, you know, inherently all the bad stuff that comes with that. And the agent, the seller's agent, claimed to also be a contractor and told her, one, that metal roofed houses don't need ventilation in the attic space.
I think that's false.
And two, that you could have up to 6 layers of roofing before they all have to be stripped and redone. I'm not a roofer, but I can't even, like, everything about that is wrong.
Yeah.
The sad thing is people don't know that. So then she comes back to me and she's like, well, he says he's a general contractor. Fortunately, you know, I've been doing this long enough now, since 2020, that I have a pretty good list of contractors that I've vetted myself. I've either used them, I've referred them and followed up, or I know these people personally. And so I referred her to a couple roofers that I know just so she could get some honest opinions. Because I do get put in that spot sometimes that, like, oh, well, what does the inspector know? You know, because I'll be honest, we're not experts. We're generalists, right? Like, we're generalists about everything in your home. But if you want to get really far into the weeds, a lot of us can go there, but won't because of liabilities. Yep. So luckily I was able to connect her with some other trustworthy experts that gave her a good opinion, and she was able to get it taken care of. But yeah, I've had agents straight say, like, no, that's fine. We're moving through with closing. And it's like, no, that's not fine. I've also, one of the other kind of craziest things that I've had happen with real estate agents is I had an agent one time, we don't work together anymore, but he was telling his clients how much we would charge for home inspections. And then he would call us to, like you said, like, you're not supposed to schedule these things, right? Like, you're supposed to give your client options. Here's a few people that you can look at. Feel free to do some research on them. Reach out to whoever you'd like. Yep. He would call to schedule the inspection for his clients.
So he's picking the inspector.
Picking the inspector, yeah, totally.
Oh my gosh.
Totally Xing them out of the relationship at all, and then saying, "Oh, by the way, I told him that the inspection would be X. Is that cool?" And it's like
a 20,000 square foot home. You're like, dude,
yeah,
what?
for like $200. Yeah. Like, I don't think so. And he did that a couple times. The first time I had a conversation with him, I'm like, hey man, like, we're running a business here. This isn't like a negotiation kind of thing. You know, like, we have set prices based on the size of the home, the systems and components that are in there, the time that our inspectors are going to be there, you know, all of these different things, they all play a factor. It's not just like shooting from the hip, like, you know, quotes, estimates. So he's like, oh yeah, okay, no problem. Then he did it again. And the second time I'm just like, you know, we can't continue to work together. If that's how, and essentially it's like, you know, I would never refer somebody to you to utilize your services and then say, hey, and by the way, they'll just take 1.5%,
or they'll do it for
commission.
like $500. It's like, dude, what?
So yeah, that was one of the other craziest things that I've had an agent do. But for the most part, I feel like I mean, they're all over the place too. They're just people, right? So you have agents kind of all over the place too. But I feel like for the most part, most real estate agents are very respectful of their clients. And so I get the input based on, you know, the amount of input needed based on what their clients' needs are.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, unfortunately there are some agents out there that will just straight lie to people to sell a home, whether it's safe or not safe, or, you know, going to be really expensive to repair or whatever. They just want to make the sale, which sucks. And that's bad, because that's where people get that
makes the whole industry look bad.
Yeah, and it's horrible.
It's we don't appreciate it.
The thing that's craziest to me that I never really understood about that is, like, with these homes, something inherently is going to happen. Mm-hmm. Who are they calling when that happens?
Yeah, it's going to be the agent most of the time.
Yeah, I'm not the first phone call typically, you know? So, like, you want to field these phone calls? Mm-hmm. Like, you want your client calling you in, 5 or 6 or 8 months and like, saying, hey, I have all of these problems going on. Like, no,
the inspector brought it up and you said it's okay.
What's going on? Yeah. So, and so that's always kind of got me like, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night, with knowing that I'm going to be the first call when something goes bad, because, I'm more than happy to field a phone call if we do something wrong, or if we miss something, or, whatever. That's a totally different situation. But if I knowingly, like, turn my eye to something, mm-hmm. there's no way. Like, I wouldn't be sleeping at night for sure.
That's one thing that, like, because I work with a lot of builders, right? Yeah. And a lot of clients feel like, oh, it's a new build. It's brand new. We don't need an inspection. And then I'm like, hey, guys, I always recommend an inspection every single time. It's like, hey, I know it's a new build. Still get an inspection. Like, no, it's okay. Mm-hmm. And then I actually had this happen recently. Closed on one 2 or 3 months ago. When, like, that crazy rainstorm came in.
Oh, yeah.
Their basement flooded.
Oh, man.
Brand new build. And I was like, they called me and I'm like, oh. And they didn't get an inspection. I mean, I don't know what made that happen, but I'm like, oh no, like.
Well, and the other hard thing with new builds too, sometimes, especially from an inspector standpoint, is I don't know what stage of the build the home was in, mm-hmm. but there's a lot of times that we'll show up to do a home inspection on a finished home and it's not finished. Yep. Like, I can't tell you how many times that I've been in a finished home doing the inspection, and I'll, like, walk up the stairs and I'm like, handrail missing. I'll go upstairs and, like, do my stuff, and there's contractors in and out the whole time, right? And then I'll come back to go down the stairs and it's like, handrails installed. Okay. You know what I mean? So, or like,
that's funny.
Or like, I've had, I've called things out and then had them reach out to the builder, like this, downspouts on the gutters. Mm-hmm. And they had, like, white stucco. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if there was, like, something crazy in the soil or whatever, but it rained really hard. It was like sleet. It was snowy. It was like either last fall or the fall before. Anyways, but it accumulated on the roof, obviously, and then was just dumping right out of the gutter and falling from, 15 feet or whatever to the ground. And there's no vegetation around anywhere. So it was just this, like, red mud. Oh. Just splashed everywhere, like 4 feet up the stucco. And I don't know if they were able to, like, clean it off, if it actually stained. Like, it was a big to do. But it was one of those things that, like, I called it out and the builder's like, oh yeah, well, that's no big deal. The guy's going to be there tomorrow to get that out. Well, tomorrow actually was, like, next week, because the guy didn't get out there tomorrow. And we had a storm that, a couple days after that, and needless to say, downspouts didn't get installed. Big times problems happen. Oh, well, gosh. It only happened the one time, but it was just, I called it out. The builder's like, don't worry, we'll get right on it. Well, by right on it, it wasn't going to get done as fast as what he thought it was going to get done. So because it wasn't finished, it didn't get done quickly, then there was problems. And that just, I mean, that sucks, not necessarily from my point, but from, you know, your point, because you're trying to do what's in the best interest of your client. And if the builder's, you know, tells you one thing and then it doesn't happen, I don't really know what you do at that point. But
yeah, it's kind of just like I mean, there's really not much you can do at that
Yeah.
point. Just kind of communicate the whole thing. Just say, hey, builder said one thing, this happened. It makes it difficult, though.
And that's, I mean, that's just kind of one of the risks also we run of building here and living here. Like I have people that, you know, talk about if they should build in the winter and, you know, what kind of risks that have. And it's just like, if you're going to, you know, there's, your build's probably going to take a significant amount of time. So like, unless you're starting right when the frost is coming off, chances are you're going to have it's going to come in contact with some moisture, right? Yep. And that's just kind of one of the things that you risk living here, building here in Utah. We get 4 seasons. So like, it's not just going to be sunny and 75 all the time.
It's never perfect building weather in Utah, unfortunately.
Yep. Absolutely.
How many, like, I guess percentage wise, how many new builds versus like pre-existing homes do you inspect?
Currently probably, I'd say probably like 30% of our inspections are new builds.
That's good.
And as you know, it's just, that's kind of the mass of what there is right now. You know, not only that, but it's really attractive with the incentives that they're, you know, the
pretty much every builder's saying, hey, we'll buy down your rate or something. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and, you know, we're just building, I mean, a lot of freestanding homes too, but we do a lot of townhome inspections. And it's just, I just feel like because we're building so many of them, I mean, we don't really have the space for single family freestanding homes everywhere. So it's just, I mean, we do a lot of townhome inspections. But yeah, I'd say probably 30% of our inspections these days are new build, which is a pretty big jump in the last like year specifically.
Yeah.
And I feel like just when, you know, obviously when inventory started to run out and everyone kicked into gear of let's start slapping up new houses, then, you know, then things kind of changed over. And I think we'll continue to see that go up for a little bit here, maybe into this next year, as we see kind of what happens with, like, you know, an election year and fun stuff with it like that. But yeah, new builds have been hot.
Mm-hmm. One thing there's multiple questions, so I'm going to throw them at you.
Hit it.
Is you have to be careful. Well, I have to be careful. You don't, but maybe you do. I don't know. But would you say, do you have like a list of builders you would buy from and a list of builders you wouldn't buy from? And then the other one is seeing kind of how quick builders are putting up homes. I've heard a lot of people like, oh, dude, there was a hole, and then like 3 months later, there was a house. Yeah. Are you like worried about how quick builders are putting homes up?
Yes and no. So yes, there's builders that I would buy from, and no builders I would not buy from. I wouldn't say who they are, but it's not, and that's not just like smaller, like niche or custom builders opposed to like large scale, you know, DR Horton or whatever kind of builders. It's kind of all across the board.
What builders would you buy from?
I would buy a DR Horton home for sure. I mean, I don't know if I should get into the name. I don't really want to play the favorites game here, okay, but fair. I already said their name. So like, yes, I would buy their house, but, I have found, you know, quality issues across both sides. It's not really, I don't think it's necessarily a size of the company type of issue. But I do think there's an issue with how fast we're having to put these up. part of the reason why I say no, I'm not that concerned about it, is because our technology and building practices have come a long way.
Yep.
You know, something that even 30 years ago, it was taking, you know, 3 or 4 guys almost a month to build a house. Now you can take 10 guys and yeah, do it in like a few weeks, you know? And that's like framing a house. That's not like digging foundation, everything. But we've improved on our building processes and the systems of kind of how all of those go together so that we can do them faster. Where we run into problems is people just doing things incorrectly. So it's not so much that you can't build something well in that amount of time. It's the quality
that can
control.
Be made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because with how many structures, how many properties, homes that are needing to be built, you only have so many well-rounded, seasoned contractors to do this, and then you have help, right? I heard this crazy statistic the other day that like with every 50 skilled contractor leaving the workforce, there's only 7 replacing them.
Wow.
So, yeah. So if that's the case, you know, you got to have so many foremen spread out so thin trying to manage all of these jobs because there's so much building going on that, I mean, we're humans. They're going to miss things. There's things that are going to slip through the cracks.
Even someone super skilled is going to miss something.
Yep, absolutely. And unfortunately, it's not that someone, you know, they just don't know that they're doing something wrong. We're using young, you know, laborers to do sometimes skilled work, and with not a lot of instruction or with, you know, incorrect instruction, they're just trying to get things done. Yep. I had a friend, he owns a roofing company. The other day, he said something like, skilled contractors do the repair work of unskilled laborers or like new laborers, right? Because they'll work fast and they'll get the job done, but you're going to have to go back and fix a lot of things because they don't know exactly how everything's supposed to go together correctly. Yeah. So, and he actually said one of his best clients is like 12-month inspections because within that first year, their roof is reeking everywhere, you know? That's crazy. So someone calls them out and they go and repair all these. And for the most part, it's okay. But, you know, there's a reason that, you know, it takes time to learn specific trades and skills to know how to do things properly. And if you don't do them correctly, you can have big time problems. So can homes be built fast in a correct way? Yes. Do we have the right type of materials, systems, you know, skill sets, all of those things to make it happen? Absolutely. But do we have enough like qualified people to do it? I don't think so. I think that we're just kind of trying to keep from tripping. We're running as fast as we can, and we're just trying to keep from tripping. Yeah. And, you know, to come back to your point of, you know, well, it's a brand new house. It's already, why have a home inspector? I get that a lot, actually. And I actually, if anyone hits you up about that, just send to my Instagram page. I post things all the time of new builds. Not because I'm hating on new builds. I love new builds, but just because for that exact point. I know that the, you know, code enforcement officer has been through there and the city inspector, but they're humans too, you know. Maybe they were late for lunch that day, or maybe their wife called and they had to, you know, quickly look through something and didn't quite get to that furthest corner or whatever it may be. You know, we make mistakes as humans, and I know when somebody calls our company to hire us for a home inspection, their interest is at the forefront of our thoughts. Yeah. Not just checking off this house so I can go to the next one in this development, so I can go to lunch and then hit this meeting and then whatever, right?
Plus,
like,
you're totally unbiased too, because you're not working
100%.
for the builder, the agent, anybody.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep. Our whole goal every time is to give our client the exact condition that the home sits that day.
Yeah.
That's our entire goal. Good, bad, ugly, everything, just complete and yeah, complete. We want to give a complete report of everything that they're going to need to know when purchasing that property.
Yeah.
And that's, that's really the biggest benefit, is they're our focus. So I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I give them the best information. And, it's not just like checking off a box and moving to the next place. They are my client for this job, end of story. So, I always recommend it, just because how many things that I have found on new builds, everything, there's little things, and then there's really big things. I've found, soffit that was energized. They had electrical wiring that was actually grounded to it. And so it would shock if you had to put up like Christmas lights, you'd be zapped.
Oh my God.
I found like internal waterfalls, and I know it sounds cool, but it's not cool. Like literally waterfalls going from someone's, kitchen sink, like down into their basement, with like a cool trifecta of buckets that kind of teared down and poured it. And then they would just shop vac that into the window well. Like just,
wow,
just crazy stuff. And yeah, I don't ever know what I'm going to like walk into with this kind of stuff. And I just want to make sure that my clients know everything. Every single time.
Would you say, we got to kind of fly through these?
Yeah, sure.
But,
go ahead, hit it.
So I've always heard like, oh my gosh, these new homes, they're getting put up with cardboard, like they're terrible quality. We got to go back to like the 70s where they're putting them up brick and yada, yada. Would you say building standards / materials have gotten better over the years?
I would not say the materials have gotten better necessarily. Well, I would say yes and no. Some have, some haven't. Obviously, we're not able to use as many like natural materials as we did before, just because we're burning through them, right? So like when we would have maybe built something solely out of hardwood, now we're using composites or like, laminates and things like that. I think that, structurally we're still using really good materials. And even as far as, cosmetic things, exterior coverings and roofing materials and all that stuff can be really good. I do think you get what you pay for. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that our building materials have gotten worse. I just think that we've had to change how we do things to be able to keep up with availability. Really,
just to be able to sustain,
and to keep up with like timing, how fast we're able to produce things. Like we're not, building everything one piece at a time anymore. A lot of things are mass produced, right? So anytime things are mass produced, you're going to have some flaws that are going to come up in between there. But I think for the most part, if it's done correctly, we still make really good homes.
Longevity wise, do you think newer homes will last longer or as long as the older homes?
I don't, just because I think that we were able to using kind of natural, more hardy materials like we used to in the past are inherently better. I think that some of the things that we use, obviously, again, structurally, 2x4s and glue lam beams and all of that stuff are structurally very sound, but I just don't think that. I think anything that you manufacture isn't necessarily as strong as something that's made naturally for that purpose. So, my opinion is they won't last as long as homes currently last. And I think I can definitely tell a difference in not only building practices and quality, but also materials from even a home from like the 90s to a home from today, or even like the 2010 eras. Wow. We're changing a lot what we're using to build. So, and it's not necessarily, the thought's not necessarily, let's make this last forever.
It's like, we got to put up houses.
That we got to put it up. We got to make it safe for people to live there. Like we're not making a cardboard box, but I also don't think people are like planning on having generations live in that home.
Like, you don't think it'll last like 100 years or anything?
I guess we'll see. I won't be around, so I guess I could say yes or no. But
are you like, I guess, what is the best and worst decade in terms of like overall build quality of homes to buy?
Oh man, so I would say homes, you're going to be in a lot of work buying homes from like the 50s to the 70s, just because of building materials that we use, you know, plumbing materials, both distribution and drain waste piping. That's also on the tail end of like asbestos containing material time. The house is probably not grounded as far as electrical wiring goes. Like there's just going to be a lot of upkeep or updating that's going to be done. So yeah, anywhere within kind of that timeline. Before that, you're still like copper piping throughout the home. You know, it is cast iron drain waste vent, but then there's like clay piping and stuff. And most of that's pretty good. Even, I mean, I see knob and tube wiring that's still in use in some places today. And as long as it's, you know, encased and not exposed to like UV light and things like that, they're going to start to deteriorate the sheathing. It's doing pretty good. But unfortunately, I don't see that with like new homes. They look really nice, but I don't get that same like hardy, gonna last forever feel.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say, you know, kind of between those eras would be one of the tougher times to buy. My favorite, honestly, is like probably mid 80s to like late 90s homes.
Oh, wow.
I think that they have really cool layouts and designs during that time period. Yeah. And I feel like we just still gave a crap about how we built stuff then, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just not as much going on, so we were able to kind of take a closer look at things as they were happening, but that's a good kind of era to buy from, I feel like.
Sweet.
Or
cool.
brand new. Let's go.
So that's just like one thing I've actually always been curious about too, as well as a couple of the viewers, just like how has build quality increased or decreased over time? And I'm actually curious about, I don't know if you walked through any of it, but like the new apartment buildings going up. Mm-hmm. And those, I mean, you'd hope if you're buying those, they're going to last a while, because it's like $20 million apartment complex, and they're built out of the same crap they're building houses out of.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm curious.
I mean, fortunately, a lot of apartment complexes are concrete and steel as well.
Yeah.
So that definitely helps. But I think, you know, and unless we can really kind of get a hold of the understanding that we're losing a lot of skilled laborers not laborers, but contractors out there. And if we're losing these guys, then there's not good people that are teaching these laborers how to do the job right. So, you know, we need some more laborers, or some more good contractors. We need some more people that are not trying to chase crypto and are willing to get their hands dirty. And like, because honestly, you know, I know it's maybe not that attractive of an occupation to some people, but mark my words, like people are going to be making money. Yep. Contractor trades.
You can't have an AI build a house.
Right. Exactly.
You just can't.
Yep. And you know, you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't know how to build anything, like what are you going to do with it? So,
and if you can't find anyone to build it,
what are you going to do?
Yep.
Yep. So, not everyone has to go to college. We can go to trade schools too. We still need tradespeople. So not everyone has to be YouTube famous, you know, like people can do tile.
I feel like you're calling me out.
People can do tile and like, you know, I don't know, unfinished carpentry and stuff like that still.
And I feel like regardless of what you're doing, if you're good at it, there's always going to be a market for you.
Absolutely.
Like if you're phenomenal at your job, regardless of what you're doing, regardless of how far technology has come, you're going to be in business.
Well, and here's the other thing. People talk about, jobs that you'll always have work, like medical field and whatever. Become a contractor. Like my friends that own contracting companies or are, laborers, plumbers, electricians, HVAC technicians, they have more work than they know what to do with.
Yeah.
Like I talked to a guy the other day that said he's scheduling things out 2 years.
No way.
Yeah. Now he's like in kind of a little bit of a niche market. So, and I just my thought initially was like, dude, do you have anxiety? Like going to sleep at night knowing that you have jobs 2 years out? But then it's like, no, you
so
have
much job security.
Like, you have work. Yeah, you have work forever, But there's a lot of work out there, and we need good people. We don't just need people.
Yeah.
Right? We need good people. So learn a trade.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm gonna learn some other stuff too. I don't know. But I think that's the biggest thing. I think that we have good products. Yeah. I know an exterior a guy that is a representative for an exterior company, and so I'm constantly picking his brain about different stuff. And he's telling me about new products that are coming out and stuff. And I know we have good building materials and good products that we use. But if you pay for the cheap stuff, you're going to get the cheap stuff. And if you have a deadline that's unreasonable, expect problems.
Yeah.
So
what's like, we're going to get to viewer questions now. What is one of your worst experiences in a house? I mean, I've had some pretty bad ones, but I'm sure you've had. I've seen your story on Instagram. You've been through some gnarly stuff.
I've had some bad ones. I mean, I don't know how G-rated we need to keep this, so I'll
go for it, dude.
Go crazy. Well, I'll give you a couple different options. Do you want the gun story? Do you want?
You've had a gun pulled on you?
Yeah,
that's scary, isn't it?
Do you want the naked person story?
Oh man.
Or do you want the raccoons in the attic story?
We're gonna have to do a part 2 to this. I want all of them.
They're pretty good.
Let's see. Naked person.
Okay. Awesome. I actually really like this story. So I was in Provo doing an inspection on a 6-plex, and I was inspecting all of the units. And it was a different investor buying the property, but all of the units were occupied. So he showed up in the morning and gave me this ring of keys, like this big, that was like 15 pounds, And it's just like, I've let everybody know, so just go ahead and knock before you go in. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I go about my work, and like, just here's another like little tip. When your home inspector's doing the inspection, leave them alone.
Yep.
Because if you go and you talk to him and you want to have conversation, whatever, he will stop and talk to you because you're his client, and like he wants to do whatever you ask, but he's getting very sidetracked, and there's a lot of stuff to go over. And so there's a certain routine and pattern that he does this with. So if you pull him out of that, he has to like refocus, right? So wait till the walkthrough to like chat with him. Anyways, so crap, and I forgot where I was at with that.
Ton of keys.
Oh yeah, ton of keys. So I'm going through all of the units. I'm about halfway through, and I'm in the zone, right? Like I'm boom, one after another, and there's this same sequence with every unit. So like I'm in the zone, go knock on the door, nothing. Knock on the door again, open it. Home inspector. I always announce myself, right? Home inspector. So I pull the keys out, grab my bag, go inside, close the door, and I always set my bag right by the front door, and I start taking photos of the living room, and I walk up and I turn left to go into the living room, and as I turn left, I see someone just go flashing by in the hall, just go bailing across the hall, just like a flash of light, and I hurry and turn, and I just see like a foot, like a calf and a foot and a towel going into the next bedroom. And I'm just like, hello. And I've yelled a few times, right? Gone in, knocked loud, yelled a few times, nobody. And so then I yell like, hello, is somebody here? And now I hear a woman's voice back there. And she's like, you need to leave. I don't know who you are. and you're not supposed to be here and you need to leave. And immediately I'm like, I'm not going to be in this situation, you know? So like I grab my bag and I'm like, I'm just the home inspector, and I grab my bag and I just go right outside. Cause I'm like, I wear a body camera every inspection just so that there's not any like weird stuff, but I also don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. You know what I mean? So I go outside and I call my client and I'm like, hey, oh no, I'm sorry. I called the seller and I'm like, hey, are you sure you let everybody know that I was coming by today? They're like, yeah, I talked to everyone. Everyone had expected you. I said, oh, well, I was just in this unit. When I went in there, somebody wasn't expecting me and had to go running across the hallway naked.
I saw some cheeks going.
there was something white flashing by. I know that. And now they're saying that they don't know about an inspection and I need to leave. So I'm not going to be able to finish my inspection on that unit. And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'll give her a call just to make sure like everything's okay, whatever, just go about the other ones. And almost before I could hang up, she comes walking outside. Cause I was just right outside of her door. And she's like, hey, I'm so sorry. I'm from out of town. I don't even live here. I'm just staying with my friend. He went to work this morning, didn't tell me that you were coming to do an inspection. So I was just like showering, getting ready for the day. And I got to walk in on it. So
that's crazy.
Yeah,
man.
that was a little interesting. Kind of a little shocker for the mid inspection on a sixplex, but yeah, I never know what I'm going to walk into. That one was pretty funny. I mean, I think some of the worst ones are just like we've done a few, like eviction houses where they're like drug houses, crazy drug houses, and the police have like evicted everybody, and there's like, Utah State Health Department stuff slapped on the door. Yeah. So those ones are not ever any fun.
I've been through one of those.
I don't want to touch anything,
Yeah, I went through one in Sandy. So long story short, I ended up getting black mold in my mouth. Yeah, I don't know how I didn't get sick.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, because there was a hole from the kitchen sink.
It fell?
Yeah, there was a hole, and no PPE. I was just being an idiot because I was gonna go by it as like a flip, and I'm like, okay, there's a kitchen. I can see the sink, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm sure there's like a leak or something. All of a sudden, there's like this little flake.
Oh my gosh!
No,
did that just touched my mouth?
That just got in my. I've never I'm trying to be as respectful as I possibly can in people's houses. Absolutely. I've never spit on someone's floor until that moment in time. Yeah. It was so.
Sometimes it's not. I mean, I was in one of those one time. The people that lived in the home were not supposed to be in the home, obviously, because they'd been evicted for drug stuff, right? So I get there to do the home inspection. I call the Utah State Health Department to let them know I'm there. You have to do that, or else you could go to jail, honestly. So I call, let them know. Then I go about my business on the outside of the house. The homeowner or occupants, whatever, come while I'm there. One of them, a female, she goes immediately downstairs. Doesn't even say anything to me. Just goes immediately downstairs. Is down there for a little bit. Comes up,
some meth.
Comes up, is almost falls over when she's comes to talk to me. And it's just acting really weird. So I'm sure she went and used some drugs. And I'm kind of just trying to not ignore her, but kind of pass her off and just keep doing my thing. And then she comes running into the backyard, all panicked. Hey, did you call the cops? I'm like, no. I called the health department to let them know I was here, but I haven't called the police. She's like, oh, well, I hope someone let them know what's going on, because last time when I came here, they took me to jail, and I'm not going to jail again. And I'm just like, it's going to be a day,
It's one of those days.
So, you never know what you're going to get.
Jeez.
It's it's been quite the ride, and honestly, I've loved every minute of it, the ups and the downs, and it's always cool to, see a new place. I geek out hard on all the different types of construction practices throughout the years. And like inspecting 100-year-old homes are like my favorite. They take forever because there's so much to look
crap
at. But oh my gosh, they're so interesting.
Yeah.
So I really love what I do. And being able to help people and have them, feel like there was value in my inspection is what keeps me doing it all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So we had to end it because we were running out of time, but we are back.
Yeah.
Okay. So questions from the viewers. So we did horror stories. What's the list of 3 things every home buyer should look for when looking at a house? Like, I guess like in the initial showing, what are like top 3 things?
So top 3 things I would always have inspected would be the roof, the sewer system, and probably your HVAC system too. Mostly because of costs, right? Like these are very expensive things to take care of.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, "Oh, sewer, like your sewer line, why is that so much of a big deal?" I didn't understand how expensive it was until I got some friends in the plumbing business, but it can be every bit as much as replacing your roof. So like always, I always say if your home's 40 years or older, get a sewer scope inspection for sure. Always have your roof checked because you just don't know what the condition could be. If your home's like pre 1980s, check the electrical panels. There are a couple electrical panels out there that are inherently risky. Zinsco panels, Zinsco Sylvania. They're like they partnered up for a while, and then Federal Pacific panels are also really bad. So take a look at those.
Federal Pacific panels.
Federal Pacific, and Zinsco Sylvania. Those are both, highly problematic panels.
Are they still bad, or were they just bad in the 80s?
Well, so we stopped using them in like the mid 70s, but we used them from like someone that's an expert is going to slaughter me on this, but I think from like the early 60s to the mid 70s, and then we stopped using them because there were so many issues with them. I mean, so many defect problems with the panels that we stopped using them. So, inspectors are actually trained if we come across them to not even take the cover off the front because there's been so many problems with just doing something simple like that. So we just leave them alone.
Just say, hey, fix it.
We recommend replacement.
Yeah.
Just because they have issues.
That's crazy.
But another thing to think about too that I always try to tell my clients about is, if you're looking for a home in a certain area of a certain age range, like you're going to be looking at these same kinds of problems, right? Mm-hmm. So like going into a house thinking that everything should be, a house that's 60, 70 years old and thinking that it should be totally up to date with current building codes and
even if it's been updated,
all
sometimes.
Of that stuff. Right. Yeah. It's just not likely. So I tell my clients that all the time, especially when we're coming across things like this, cast iron, drain waste vent systems, and Federal Pacific electrical boxes, and galvanized water lines, things like that. Like, are they problematic? Yeah. Should you be aware of them so that you can do things to be taking care of these as you have ownership of the home? Yes. Like, just because you have galvanized water lines doesn't mean you have to come in and repipe everything right now. But should you be, should you know of the risks and be putting together some kind of plan to upgrade these to a type of system that's not going to fail? Absolutely. But if while you're looking at these homes, you're going to be looking at these same kinds of things. So maybe this shouldn't be something that you're walking away from.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And then let's see. Oh, this is actually a good one. Because obviously, especially with FHA, the appraiser will also do an inspection with new builds, the city, yada, yada, right?
Yeah.
So what is different? And because I've heard this, like, oh, you know, like the appraiser going to do an inspection. We don't need one. Doesn't work that way. What's the difference?
Well, and which is even kind of funny. I actually talked to the appraiser about this the other day. He was asking me questions about certain things about the home for his inspection. And I understand why the bank's having them do it, but it's kind of one of those weird spots because they're muddy in the water a little bit, right? Yep. Appraisers are really only looking for, my understanding anyways, and I'm not a lender, right? But my understanding is the appraisers are looking for things that would be a liability to the loan, right? Mm-hmm. So missing handrails, someone falls and gets hurt and there's a problem there, or covers missing on window wells, or baluster spacing, or like things of that nature, and or things that are going to have huge cost risks, right? Like foundation failure, mm-hmm. or a really bad roof or something like that. So they really just check off kind of big ticket items, and the really obvious stuff. Yeah, like safety things. Yep. So their inspection is very minimal, and it honestly is just for the protection of the bank. Yep. It has nothing to do with the buyer. So yeah, they are doing an inspection, but it's of very few components and systems, and it's only a certain type of, like all of it's visual. None of it is a functional inspection. Yeah. A lot of appraisers won't even pack around a ladder, yep. which like sucks because they are required to look, up in the attic space and stuff like that. So yeah, it's completely different. Our inspections are not only looking at 2 or 3 things that the bank wants to verify. We're assessing everything that has to do with the home, from the grounds of the property, how they're taking effect on the structure itself, the foundation, all the structural components, all the large systems throughout the home, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, drain waste vent, as well as making sure that everything else is functional, right? All the windows work, all the doors work. You have proper clearance. You don't have doorways opening up into toilets and things of that nature, right? So it takes a lot more training and is far more in depth, in my opinion, than like a bank liability check.
Yep, I agree.
So
I agree. And then let's see. Kind of already covered that one. This one's just saying, okay, what do you say to a home buyer if like they ask if an inspection's worth it, / do you recommend inspecting a new build? And the answer is yes.
Yes, and if I could just kind of piggyback on that. So I would always recommend a home inspection, just because home inspectors are looking for everything, not just necessarily what that code enforcement officer or building inspector is looking for that day. We're looking at everything, right? Not only that, but a lot of home inspectors can take care of a number of different ancillary services as well. You're wanting to inspect for things that you necessarily can't see too. I've tested brand new builds positive for methamphetamine. I've also tested grandma's house that's lived there for 50 years and, never even had like a sip of wine and tested positive for methamphetamine. You just don't. I'm actually good friends with the owner of Meth Mob Decontamination, and Ann, you probably know her, and she says like 1 in 7 houses pop these days in the state of Utah. So like that's crazy. You want to be testing for other things as well, and your builder, your code enforcement officer isn't testing for those things. not only that, but it gives you, it gives the buyer, you know, something to stand on. It's not necessarily their word versus the builders. There's like you brought up earlier, there's a non-biased opinion here from someone that's trained and certified to do this, that's saying that these things are problems. So it kind of takes the heat off the buyer of saying, you know, oh, I didn't say this was a problem. My inspector said this was a problem, right? And I feel like having that buffer is very helpful sometimes in, you know, especially when you're wanting to negotiate terms on the closing of a home. Yep. So there's something to review. There's, you know, it's an official document. I have a legal obligation to my clients. So like it's something that I would definitely recommend just to make sure that, you know, all of their bases are being covered. I also recommend that, you know, aside from a home inspection, every home you test for meth and radon gas. The reason for that is, you know, radon gas is kind of, you pretty much have a 50-50 chance as well. You can flip a coin and maybe you'll have a problem, maybe you won't. Yep. I've tested radon gas across the street from each other and down one house and had completely different readings that close in proximity. So it really just depends on what the structure is of the ground beneath your home. You know, if there's larger fissures in the earth that are allowing more gaseous material up through, opposed to your neighbor that is, you know, a little bit tighter or, you know, closed off. So I always recommend getting radon gas tested just because it's the second leading cause of lung cancer in the United States next to cigarette smoke. Yep. So, you know, you want to make sure that they say, so radon gas is measured in picocuries, and they say the measurement 4.0 and higher. So at the measurement of 4.1 is the equivalent of smoking 20 cigarettes a day. So like a pack of cigarettes a day. Right?
That's a good amount.
And you're just hanging out in your house. So like everyone should check that. And like if your neighbor if their levels are low, cool, still check yours because that doesn't really mean anything. Yep. And then again, methamphetamine, I find it everywhere. And is there
like a city that's the worst?
No.
Really?
No.
It's just super spread
everywhere. Wow. That's the scary thing about it is like, and I was just going to kind of get into that is I don't even try to like guess anymore if this house is going to test hot or not, because I've been surprised so many times thinking like, oh, there's no way that there's meth in this house, or for sure there's meth being done in this house, and it comes back undetected. Yeah.
Crazy.
Or else like one that I'm like, oh no, this will for sure be clean, and it's really hot, you know? Wow. And it's just a lot of times it's not necessarily the homeowner. A lot of times they've let someone into the home to take care of them, or, you know, allow someone to stay, you know. I've heard like, and most of the time they go back and figure out who it was, right?
Or even the contractors who built it sometimes.
Right. That's definitely happened. So yeah, I've tested before, and the contractors that were building the home were doing meth. It's because we got to get it done so fast. So like they're doing something to keep up with the schedules. Going. Yeah.
The Celsiuses aren't coming anymore.
Right. Exactly. And one of the craziest things that I heard, this didn't happen to me specifically, but one of the craziest things that I heard with new builds was, there was a new build, tested positive for meth. So the contractors were smoking meth when they're building it. They found it in the HVAC system. So they sent out a different HVAC company to clean out the duct system to make sure that it was decontaminated with meth. And the guy that was cleaning the duct system was smoking meth while he was cleaning the duct system. So they went back and tested the duct system, and they're like, it's even higher than it was before. Like, what's happening?
Oh my God.
I don't think that guy has a job anymore. But yeah, you find it everywhere. I think and again, I don't try to guess because I've been surprised so many times. Like I heard that the typical like meth user, like the ideal meth user in the state of Utah these days is like a mid-30-year-old white woman. So like soccer mom, like just keeping up with all of her daily stuff. Yeah. Which surprises me a lot. Like I would not expect that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know anything about, like, I don't know a lot about meth. Like I don't know what it looks like or like any of that stuff. I know how to test for it. I know the really bad things that come from exposure and all of that stuff. But I think of, you know, people that have those lifestyles, and like mid-30-year-old soccer mom doesn't pop into my head. So I don't try to even guess anymore just because I've been surprised so many times. But I find it so frequently that I would always test for it. And it's, I mean, the tests are, they all have, everything has a cost, right? But it's so marginal that like the peace of mind is well worth it, I feel like.
Yeah, especially if like you have kids or something. It's like, why wouldn't you?
Well,
you know?
Yeah, I mean,
even if you don't, it's just.
I was gonna say, do you care about yourself? Like,
yeah.
You only care about your kids? Yeah, I mean, I don't want lung cancer just by
breathing,
hanging out in my house. Yeah,
yeah.
And I also don't want, for sure, my kids to be exposed to someone else's party. You know, like it's just they're easy enough to test for and easy enough to remediate for that. Like everyone, when you buy a property, just please test your stuff.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Mm-hmm. I agree. Let's see. And then the last one. Oh, my handwriting is so bad. Oh, we already touched on that. This one's just, has home quality increased over time? Should you buy new construction or an older home? We already touched on that, but if you want more.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I think that I would stick to my guns on that one. I don't think that build quality has necessarily gone down, or like the process of how we build things. I think that we're learning better ways to build things, but the quality control is what sucks. We just have inexperienced people trying to do things really fast and not enough experienced, qualified contractors to make sure that things are just getting done the right way.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Cool. Well, that's pretty much it. Do you have anything else you want to cover, or?
I don't think so. I mean, we've chatted quite a bit. I think we've gone through, you know, all of my history as well as, you know, the questions that you had. So I know it's wrestling season, so I'm sure you're getting excited about that.
Yep. And coaching at the high school still.
Yeah.
That's
right on.
Favorite. Love
cool.
it.
What high school?
Granger.
Okay.
That's where I graduated from.
Sweet.
So going back. And
nice, man.
Trying to help out. But.
Well, my son's wrestling, so maybe we'll see you on the mat.
Yeah. Remember, what school is it again?
He's wrestling for Mountain Ridge.
Mountain Ridge. Oh, are they? Because we just moved from 6A to 5A. Are they 5A?
I should know this. I don't.
That's funny.
They might be. I mean, it's a big school. They might be 6A. Hopefully, I'll see you on the map. That'd be cool.
That'd be sick.
But I appreciate you having me in today. It's been fun chatting.
Absolutely, it was awesome. Well, we got nothing else for you. If you guys, his Instagram is awesome. He posts a ton of crap. It's all amazing. So shout out your Instagram. What's your Instagram?
It's
we'll flash it on the screen too.
Yeah, I think it's Utah.elevated at Utah.elevated.
Yep. Definitely go give him a follow. It's good stuff. It's awesome.
I like posting fun stuff on there, kind of out of the norm things that you wouldn't really see, and also good, you know, beneficial stuff if you're looking to buy or sell a home.
Awesome. So. And then if you guys want to get in touch with him for your home inspection, I'll have all of his info in the description as well. Otherwise, stay tuned for the next podcast. We appreciate it. See ya.